A millionaire kicks his wife out of the house to be with his pregnant lover. Months later, he is shocked to discover who his lover really is. Marcus Thorne's knuckles whitened around his Montblanc pen as he watched the investment numbers scroll across the boardroom screen. 48 pairs of eyes fixed on him, waiting. The real estate market projections flashed red. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice filled the silence. These numbers don't tell the whole story. He stood, straightened his Brioni suit, and walked to the front of the room. The leather shoes he'd bought last week in Milan clicked against the marble floor. 20 years of closing deals had taught him this moment, the pause before the strike. What they don't show, he continued, is the Thompson Street development. Single quotes. Fingers flew across laptops as his executive team pulled up the files. Marcus didn't need to look. He'd memorized every detail. While our competitors focus on luxury condos, we're converting an entire block into mixed-use development. Retail, residential, office space. He clicked through the renderings. Conservative estimate, 40% return in 18 months. A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus caught Jennifer's eye. His new executive assistant watched him with an intensity that made his collar feel tight. Questions? Marcus asked. Silence. He'd nailed it. Again. The meeting dispersed, but Jennifer lingered, gathering papers with deliberate slowness. Her perfume, something expensive, filled the space between them as the last board member left. Impressive presentation, Mr. Thorne. Marcus, he corrected. You've been here 3 months. Time to drop the formality. She smiled, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. Marcus, his phone buzzed. Claire's face appeared on the screen. He declined the call. The development committee needs these projections reviewed by morning, Jennifer said, stepping closer. I could stay late, help you go through them. Marcus loosened his tie. The air conditioning seemed to have stopped working. That would be. He paused. Helpful. The drive home felt longer than usual. The mansion's lights were on. Claire always kept them on for him. 20 years of marriage built on these small gestures. He found her in the kitchen, still in her tennis clothes, pushing food around her plate. You missed dinner, she said. Again, board meeting ran late. They always do lately. Marcus grabbed a bottled water from the fridge, avoiding her eyes. Big project, Thompson Street. You didn't return my call. In meetings all day. Claire put down her fork. The clink against the plate echoed. Your daughter called. Emma's getting that award tomorrow. Emma, she hoped you'd make it. Marcus pressed his fingers against his temples. His father's voice echoed in his head. Success costs, boy. Pay the price or stay mediocre. The memory of finding his father dead at his desk. 42 years old. Heart attack. Still burned. Marcus had been 15. The debt collectors came a week later. I'll try, he said. Like you tried last month? And the month before? He turned away, heading for his study. The house felt too big, too quiet. His phone lit up with a text from Jennifer. Documents ready whenever you are. Marcus stared at the message. His thumb hovered over the screen. Going back to the office, he called out. Don't wait up. Claire didn't answer. The office lights were dim when he arrived, except for the soft glow from Jennifer's desk. She'd changed into something more comfortable. Yoga pants and a loose sweater that slipped off one shoulder. I ordered Chinese, she said. Hope you like Kung Pao chicken. They spread the documents across his desk, but the numbers blurred. Jennifer's leg brushed against his as she reached for a file. Sorry, she whispered, but didn't move away. At midnight, she closed the last folder and turned to face him. Their faces were inches apart. Marcus, she said, I need to tell you something. Her hand trembled as she placed it over his. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath his feet. "It's yours," she added softly. "And I'm keeping it." The city lights sparkled through the window behind her. Countless tiny stars in a concrete sky. Marcus thought of Claire at home, waiting. Of Emma's award ceremony tomorrow. Of his father's empty desk. He didn't go home that night. Or the next. The decision had already been made. Somewhere between Jennifer's revelation and the dawn breaking over the city. He just didn't know it yet. Jennifer slid the ultrasound image across Marcus's desk 3 weeks later. Black and white shadows that she claimed showed their future. His future. "Look," she pointed. "You can see the heartbeat." Marcus nodded, but all he saw were blurry shapes. His phone buzzed again. Claire's 5th call today. He silenced it. "We need to talk about arrangements," Jennifer said. "I can't keep hiding this." The office is starting to notice single quotes. Marcus rubbed his jaw, feeling 3 days of stubble. He hadn't slept properly since the night in the office. "I know. So when are you going to tell her?" The question he'd been avoiding hung between them. Tonight was his 20th wedding anniversary. Claire had made reservations at Le Cirque months ago. "Tonight," he said. The word felt like gravel in his mouth. He made it home by 7. Claire stood in their bedroom, wearing the black dress he bought her in Paris last year. She was checking her phone, frowning. "You're late," she said. "But at least you remembered." Marcus's stomach clenched. She hadn't found the messages yet. "Claire, oh, I almost forgot." She reached for her purse. "Your phone's been acting strange. Messages coming through on my iPad." She held up the tablet. "Who's Jennifer?" The room temperature dropped 20 degrees. "I can explain." "Explain what?" "The late nights? The pregnancy test results she sent you? Or the house listing she's been sending?" Claire's voice didn't shake. That was worse than if she'd screamed. "How long?" 3 months, Marcus said. "The baby's mine." The tablet hit the wall beside his head, shattering. "Get out. Claire, get out." Now she was screaming. 20 years, Marcus. 20 fucking years. The bedroom door burst open. Their son Michael stood there, face red. "What's going on?" "Ask your father about his pregnant girlfriend," Claire spat. Michael stared at Marcus, comprehension dawning. "You piece of shit." "Son." Michael's fist connected with Marcus's jaw, sending him stumbling backward. "Emma's in the driveway. She was coming to surprise you for your anniversary. Should I tell her why you won't be celebrating?" Blood trickled from Marcus's split lip. Through the window, he saw Emma getting out of her car, smiling, carrying what looked like a gift. "I'll tell her," Marcus said quietly. "No." Claire's voice was ice. "You don't get to destroy her tonight, too. You get your things and get out." Marcus packed while Claire told Emma downstairs. The muffled sobs pierced the walls like bullets. He filled 2 suitcases with suits and essentials. 20 years of marriage reduced to pressed shirts and toiletries. Michael stood in the doorway. "Mom's not leaving." "This is her house, single quotes." Marcus turned. "I know." "I'm not asking her to." "Then where's she supposed to go?" "She stay." "I'm leaving." Michael laughed bitterly. "Kicking your family out for your knocked-up secretary? Real classy, Dad." "Executive assistant," Marcus corrected automatically, then winced at his own stupidity. "Go to hell." Rain started falling as Claire walked out the front door, carrying a single suitcase. Emma ran after her. "Mom, please, stay at my place." "I can't be in this house another minute," Claire said. She turned to Marcus. "I hope she's worth it." Marcus watched his family fracture in the rain. Claire's cab disappeared into the darkness. Emma's car screeched away minutes later. Michael simply walked out, not looking back. Jennifer arrived an hour later with 3 suitcases and a triumphant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Finally," she said, running her hand along the marble counter that Claire had picked out years ago. "A proper home for the baby. Marcus poured himself 3 fingers of scotch and carried it to his study. The house felt different already. Colder. "Don't drink too much," Jennifer called after him. "We have brunch with my parents tomorrow. They're dying to meet you properly." Marcus stared at the scotch, remembering countless evenings with Claire in this room, planning their future. Now a different future waited downstairs, unpacking designer clothes in his bedroom. His phone lit up with a text from Michael. "Emma's crying herself to sleep. Hope you're happy with your midlife crisis." Jennifer appeared in the doorway, wearing one of Claire's robes. "Coming to bed, honey?" Marcus drained the scotch. In a minute, she frowned. "Don't be too long. We should discuss redecorating. This room is so dated." The study door closed behind her. Marcus opened his laptop, staring at the Thompson Street development numbers without seeing them. Outside, the rain continued falling. His father's voice echoed again. "Success costs, boy." But his father never said how much, or whether the price was worth paying. The first night in his new life stretched ahead, dark and endless. The whispers at Thorne Development stopped whenever Marcus walked by. 3 weeks after Claire left, the office politics had shifted like tectonic plates. Senior executives who used to linger in his doorway now sent emails instead. His secretary requested a transfer to accounting. "They'll adjust," Jennifer said, perched on his desk an address that cost more than most of his employees' monthly salaries. "They're just jealous." Marcus stared at the empty chairs during the morning meeting. 3 board members had sent last-minute excuses. The Morrison Group pulled out of Thompson Street. His CFO reported flatly, said they're exploring other opportunities. "Call them," Marcus ordered. I did. "They're not taking your calls." The Whitman's annual charity gala arrived like a bomb deadline. Marcus had attended for 15 years. Claire usually handled the details. "I ordered you a new tux," Jennifer announced. The old one wasn't current enough. The ballroom fell silent when they entered. Jennifer's red dress screamed for attention. Her hand clutched Marcus's arm like a vice. "Marcus," Richard Whitman approached, martini in hand. His wife Susan, Claire's tennis partner for a decade, stood pointedly across the room. "Rich, good turnout." Richard's eye slid to Jennifer. "Wasn't sure you'd come. Wouldn't miss it. Claire sends her regrets. She's in Europe. Milan, I believe." With James, Marcus's stomach lurched. "James? Harrison, from Morgan Stanley. You remember him. Their kids went to school together." Richard smiled thinly. "Small world." Jennifer's nails dug into Marcus's arm. "Darling, let's get champagne." They lasted 45 minutes. In that time, 3 couples left their table when they sat down. Susan Whitman publicly donated to Claire's new charitable foundation, and someone accidentally spilled red wine on Jennifer's dress. "Those bitter, jealous people." Jennifer fumed in the car. "They don't deserve us." Marcus loosened his bow tie. "They've known Claire for years, and now they'll know me." Jennifer's voice hardened. "I want to redo the house. Claire's taste is everywhere. It's suffocating. It's not the right time. The Morrison pullout. I'm carrying your child. I won't raise our baby in a shrine to your ex." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. His phone lit up. Emma's face appeared on the screen. "Don't," Jennifer snapped. He answered anyway. "Emma? Michael's graduating next week," his daughter said flatly. "He doesn't want you there, but Mom said I should tell you anyway. Emma, please. That's all. Bye, Dad." Jennifer deleted the graduation information from his calendar the next morning. The changes started small. His favorite coffee replaced with organic decaf. Caffeine's bad for the baby, even secondhand. His clothes rearranged. Your style needs updating. Claire's photographs disappeared. It's morbid to keep them. Then came Christmas. "I sent your family's cards back," Jennifer announced over breakfast. "They can't disrespect me," and expect holiday greetings. Marcus stared at his untouched eggs. Those were from my children. They're adults. They made their choice. She rubbed her still flat stomach. This baby is your family now. The mansion's usual Christmas decorations stayed in storage. Jennifer hired a decorator who turned the house into what she called a modern winter wonderland. The familiar ornaments Marcus and Claire had collected over 20 years vanished. "Perfect," Jennifer declared, surveying the metallic and white display. "Fresh start." Christmas Day brought silence. No calls, no texts. Michael and Emma had blocked his number. "We should practice your speech for the New Year's investor meeting," Jennifer said, picking at her organic turkey. "The Thompson Street numbers need work." Marcus nodded, barely listening. His CFO had been trying to schedule a private meeting for days, something about financial discrepancies. The year ended with a whimper. Marcus sat in his study, reviewing reports that made less sense the longer he stared at them. Money was moving in strange patterns. Investments he didn't remember approving. Signatures that looked almost, but not quite, like his. Jennifer appeared with chamomile tea. "Coming to bed?" "Soon. Need to finish these." She kissed his cheek. Her perfume had changed, more expensive now. Everything about her was more expensive. After she left, Marcus opened his laptop. The CFO's urgent emails filled his screen. Words jumped out. Irregularities, unauthorized transfers, immediate attention required. A text from an unknown number lit up his phone. Check the prenatal clinic receipts. Sarah, Jennifer's old assistant. Marcus's hand shook as he opened the company financial records. The numbers swam before his eyes, then snapped into terrible focus. In the master bedroom, Jennifer slept peacefully, one hand resting on her stomach. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching her breathe. The price of success, it turned out, was still being calculated. Marcus stared at the empty parking space outside the OBGYN's office. Jennifer's Range Rover, bought with his money last month, should have been there. Miss Reynolds? The receptionist looked confused. "We don't have a patient by that name." Marcus paused. What was Jennifer now? Girlfriend? Partner? She had an appointment at 2 p.m. Jennifer Reynolds. "She's 4 months pregnant." The receptionist typed, frowning. "Sir, we've never had a patient by that name." Marcus's phone felt heavy in his hand. 3 canceled appointments in 2 weeks. Always with excuses. Doctor called in sick, scheduling mix-up, traffic. "Thank you," he said, and walked out. The drive back to his office took 20 minutes. Marcus spent every second replaying the past 4 months. Jennifer's loose clothes. The ultrasound image that never quite came into focus. The way she changed the subject whenever he mentioned meeting her doctor. Sarah, Jennifer's former assistant, waited in his office. "You got my text," she said. Marcus closed the door. "Talk." Sarah pulled out a manila envelope. She's done this before. 3 times. The photo spilled across his desk. Jennifer with different men. Different cities. Different names. Houston 2 years ago. Chicago before that. Always the same pattern. Sarah's voice shook. Rich men, unhappy marriages. She gets pregnant, moves in, then cleans them out. Marcus picked up a photo. Jennifer, or whatever her name was, kissing a gray-haired man outside a restaurant. When? 8 months ago. Right before she came here. His hands found another envelope in his desk. The financial records his CFO had flagged. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. Small at first, then larger. Always just under the amount that would trigger automatic alerts. "She fired me when I started asking questions," Sarah said. The others two, anyone who'd been here before she arrived. Marcus's phone buzzed. "Jennifer, where are you?" "We have the Lamacy class." He let it go to voicemail. "The pregnancy tests?" he asked Sarah. "Faked. She has a friend at the lab." The ultrasound image sat on his desk, mocking him. He'd framed it last week at Jennifer's insistence. The baby? Sarah shook her head. There is no baby. Never was. Marcus's office door burst open. Jennifer stood there, face flushed. What is she doing here? Her voice could have frozen hell. Sarah stood. Telling the truth. Security, Jennifer shouted. This woman is trespassing. Sit down, Marcus said quietly. Jennifer blinked. Excuse me? Sit down. She smoothed her dress, another expensive purchase, and sat. Her eyes caught the photos on his desk. Something flickered behind them, not fear. Calculation. Those are fake, she said. Obviously. Like the baby? Her hand went automatically to her stomach. How dare you call the clinic? They've never heard of you? I switched doctors. I told you. Stop lying. Marcus's fist hit the desk. Coffee cups rattled. It's over. Jennifer's face changed. The mask slipped, just for a second. Something cold and reptilian looked out from behind her eyes. Over? She smiled. Check your accounts, Marcus. Really check them. See what's already gone. Sarah pulled out her phone. I've got copies of everything. Transfer records, fake IDs, all of it. Smart girl. Jennifer stood, but not smart enough. Those accounts? They don't exist. The money's already moved again. And again. Good luck tracing it. She walked to the door, then turned. Oh, and Marcus? I'd keep better track of what you sign. Some of those papers? They weren't just money transfers. The door closed behind her. Marcus grabbed his phone, dialed his bank. Account number 8247. His voice caught. I need to check recent activity. The banker's voice turned sympathetic. I'm sorry, sir. That account was closed yesterday. For your signed request. Marcus looked at Sarah. How much? From what I found, 12 million. Maybe more? His phone lit up. Text from Jennifer. Check your email. The Thompson Street investors would love to know where their money really went. Your signatures on everything, single quotes. Marcus's hand shook as he opened his laptop. Documents filled the screen. His signature, over and over, authorizing transfers he'd never seen. She's good at forgery, Sarah said. But these last ones? You signed them. I saw you. When? Those partnership contracts last week. The ones she said were routine. The room tilted sideways. Marcus remembered signing without reading. Jennifer hovering, distracting him with pregnancy updates. His phone buzzed again. Michael. Just saw the news. You bankrupted the Morrison family? Their life savings? What the hell, Dad? Marcus stared at the contracts on his screen. Hidden between the pages, transfer authorizations. His signature, binding and legal. The intercom crackled. Sir, police are here. They say it's urgent. Sarah gathered her evidence. I'll testify. Whatever you need. Marcus nodded, numb. Through his office window, he watched Jennifer walk to her car. She looked up, smiled, and blew him a kiss. His phone lit up one last time, a video message from her. Thanks for the memories, Marcus. Don't worry, the next guy's already lined up. He sends his regards, or at least his wife's tennis partner does. The police knocked on his door. Marcus thought of Claire in the rain that night, of Emma's tears, of Michael's fury. The price of success had finally come due, and he couldn't afford to pay. The total damage, Marcus's lawyer said, spreading papers across the conference table, is closer to 20 million. Early morning light filtered through the downtown office windows. Marcus hadn't slept in 3 days. His suit, once perfectly tailored, hung loose on his frame. How? His voice sounded like someone else's. She was thorough. Multiple accounts, shell companies. The lawyer, David Cohen, hired after his regular firm dropped him, adjusted his glasses. The Thompson Street investors' money. Gone? Worse, She used it as collateral for loans. Loans you apparently guaranteed. Marcus stared at his signature. Some forged, some real. All damning. The Morrison family lost everything. They're filing suit next week. The door opened. His CFO entered, carrying more files. Found another one. Account in the Caymans. How much? $3 million. Transferred last month. Marcus remembered signing those papers. Jennifer wearing that blue dress, talking about baby names. Her hand on his shoulder, pointing to the signature line. Sir? His secretary's voice crackled over the intercom. Detective Phillips is here. The detective didn't bother sitting. Jennifer Reynolds. Real name, Catherine Blackwood. Wanted in 3 states. 4? Same scam, different names. You're not her first. Single quotes. Phillips tossed a file on the table. But you're her biggest score yet. Marcus opened the file. More photos. Jennifer, Catherine, with other men. Other lives. Other lies. We frozen what accounts we could find, Phillips said. But most of the money's gone. She's good at this. How many others? 5 we know of. All the same pattern. She researches her targets for months. Learns their weaknesses. Phillips paused. Your wife's tennis partner? Marcus looked up. She'd been watching you for a year. Knew your routines, your habits. The affair with James Harrison? She arranged that too. The room spun. Marcus gripped the table edge. Claire and James never. His voice trailed off. Had an affair? No. But Catherine made sure you thought they did. Those texts you saw. The photos? All staged. A knock at the door. Sarah entered, pale-faced. Sir, you need to see this. The conference room TV flickered to life. Catherine, still calling herself Jennifer, sat across from a news anchor. Tears streamed down her face. He knew, she sobbed. He knew exactly where the money was going. The investors, those poor families. He promised we'd return it. The anchor leaned forward. And the baby? Catherine touched her stomach. Lost. The stress. When I discovered what he'd done, Marcus's phone exploded with messages. Reporters at the lobby. Police wanting more statements. Investors demanding answers. Turn it off, he whispered. The TV went black. Silence filled the room. She contacted the Morrison family, Sarah said quietly. Offered to testify against you. Detective Phillips gathered his files. We'll keep looking. But she's probably out of the country by now. Marcus nodded. The morning sun cast long shadows across the conference table. His phone lit up. An unknown number. The country club charity gala. Next week. Thought you should know Claire's chairing it this year. His finger hovered over the delete button. With James Harrison as co-chair, the phone slipped from his hand. David Cohen cleared his throat. About the lawsuits. We should discuss settlements. How bad? Best case, you keep the house. Maybe 10% of the company. Worst case? Prison. Marcus stood on shaking legs. Through the window, he watched the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Catherine was starting over. New name, new target, new lies. His phone buzzed again. Emma. Mom's not dating James. Never was. That woman told me everything. How could you believe her over us? The message blurred through tears he refused to let fall. Sarah touched his arm. There's more. The company accounts. How much is left? Enough to pay the employees. Maybe 2 months. 200 families. Their mortgage, their children's college funds, their futures. All built on trust in him. Pay them first, he said. Everything we have left. David Cohen made notes. The board meeting's in an hour. The want answers. Marcus straightened his tie. One last performance. His phone lit up one final time. A video message from Catherine. Thanks for the memories, darling. Don't worry about the money. I'm putting it to good use. The video showed her on a beach somewhere, laughing, living on what she'd stolen from him, from everyone who trusted him. Marcus deleted the message, straightened his shoulders, and walked toward the boardroom, toward whatever was left of his life. The price of truth, he discovered, was even higher than the price of lies. She hit 3 others before you, Detective Phillips said, spreading photos across Marcus's kitchen counter. The mansion felt cavernous now, empty of everything but echoes. Thomas Bradford, Houston oil money. Lost $8 million. Phillips pointed to a photo. Robert Chun, Chicago real estate. $5 million. Another photo. Stephen Walsh, Miami tech startup. $7 million. Marcus stared at the men's faces. All successful. All destroyed. Patterns always the same. Phillips continued. She researches for months, plants herself in their orbit. Then the pregnancy story. And they all fell for it? Phillips looked up. Like you did. The doorbell rang. Marcus's new security system showed Andrew Morrison on the camera. His oldest friend, now his biggest victim. Phillips gathered his files. I'll use the back door. Andrew stood on the porch, gray-faced. The man who'd played golf with Marcus every Sunday for 15 years looked like he'd aged decades. Why? No greeting. No preamble. Marcus stepped aside. Andrew entered, then stopped. The house was half-packed, moving boxes everywhere. Selling it? Have to. Part of the settlement. Andrew nodded. His hand shook slightly. Sarah showed me the records. Everything Jennifer, Catherine, did. Andy, I never meant. Corinne's dying. Andrew's voice cracked. Cancer. The treatments. That money was everything we had. Marcus sat heavily on a moving box. I didn't know. No, you didn't. Too busy with your midlife crisis to notice your best friend's wife was in chemo. The silence stretched like a chasm between them. The company's liquidating everything, Marcus said finally. You'll get first. Keep your money. Andrew turned to leave. Corinne has 3 months, maybe less. Remember that while you're rebuilding your life, the door closed softly. Sometimes quiet goodbyes hurt more than slammed doors. Marcus's phone rang. Detective Phillips found something. Coffee? 20 minutes? The diner was empty, except for a waitress refilling ancient coffee pots. Phillips slid a laptop across the table. Watch. Security footage played. Catherine, younger, darker hair, working a hotel bar, picking her targets. Different names, different stories. This is how she finds them, Phillips said. Bartenders, servers, hotel staff. They talk. Tell her who's unhappy, who's vulnerable. Marcus watched his own face appear on screen. The hotel bar where he'd first noticed Jennifer last year. She knew your whole routine, when you stayed late at the office, which business dinners you attended alone. The footage changed. Jennifer talking to a bartender Marcus recognized. Tommy from his club. Tommy told her everything, Phillips said. Your fights with Claire. The missed dinners. Emma's graduation. He paused. And Corinne Morrison's cancer. Marcus pushed the laptop away. She used that? Made sure you were too distracted to notice Andrew pulling back from investments. Too busy to ask why. The coffee turned bitter in Marcus's mouth. His phone lit up. Michael, Mom told me about Corinne. How could you not know? Before he could respond, another message from Claire. Corinne's asking for you. Go see her. You owe her that much. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly. Room 412. Marcus stopped at the door, hearing Andrew's voice inside. Marcus? He turned. Claire stood there, holding coffee cups. She's having a good day, Claire said. As good as it gets now. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. I'll tell them you're here. Karen looked small in the hospital bed. Tubes and machines surrounded her like alien architecture. There he is, she said weakly. The big shot. Andrew stood. I'll get more ice. When he was gone, Karen patted the bed. Sit. I'm not contagious. Marcus perched carefully beside her. Karen, save it. Her voice was thin but firm. Andrew told me everything. About her. The scam. I'll find a way to pay. I'm not seeing next Christmas, Marcus. Money doesn't matter now. She gripped his hand suddenly. But you can do something for me. Anything. Fix it. Not the money. You. Fix yourself. Her eyes were fierce despite the morphine. Stop hiding in that office. Stop trying to be your father. Marcus stared at their joined hands. I don't know how. Yes, you do. Karen's grip tightened. Start with them. She nodded toward the door. Emma stood there, Michael beside her. His children, watching him with their mother's eyes. Dad? Emma's voice wobbled. Michael stepped forward. Mom said, she said you know the truth now. About everything. Marcus stood on shaking legs. Karen released his hand with a small push. Go, she whispered. Start fixing it. The hospital corridor felt different now. His children walked beside him, not quite close, not quite distant. Coffee? He asked. Emma nodded. Michael hesitated, then said, yeah, okay. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Another message from Catherine, probably gloating from some distant beach. Marcus turned the phone off. Some messages didn't need answers. Some prices were too high to keep paying. The for sale sign creaked in the morning wind. Marcus stood in his driveway, soon to be someone else's driveway, watching the real estate agent hammer it into perfectly manicured grass. Asking prices low, she said, straightening her blazer. But given the circumstances. Everyone used that phrase now. Like his life had become a polite euphemism. How soon? In this market? 2 weeks. Maybe less. Single quotes, Marcus nodded, picturing strangers walking through rooms that still echoed with 20 years of memories. His phone buzzed. The bankruptcy attorney. Board meetings at 10, the lawyer said. They're voting on the dissolution plan. The Thorne development lobby fell silent when Marcus entered. Eyes dropped. People suddenly remembered urgent calls. His elevator rode empty to the top floor. M.R. Thorne, his former secretary, didn't meet his gaze. They're waiting. The boardroom. His boardroom once held 18 people. Empty chairs showed like missing teeth where others should have been. Marcus, Richard Whitman, now acting CEO, stood. Let's make this quick. The presentation took 12 minutes. Asset liquidation, severance packages, debt restructuring. Questions? Richard asked the room. Silence answered. Marcus? Richard's voice held no warmth. Anything to add? Marcus stood. Papers trembled slightly in his hands. The employee pension fund, he said. It's untouched? Yes. We managed to isolate it before. Richard paused. Before everything else and severance packages? 3 months. Best we can do. Marcus placed a folder on the table. Sell my shares, all of them. Add it to the severance pool. Murmurs rippled through the room. That's not necessary, Richard said. Yes, it is. Marcus walked out before anyone could respond. His office, already half-packed, waited like a tomb. His phone lit up. Emma. Michael told me about the shares. Dad. It's okay, sweetheart. They need it more than I do. Silence. Then, Mom's having dinner with us tonight. Want to come? Marcus's throat tightened. I don't think, please, Dad. Just try? The restaurant sat halfway between his soon-to-be-sold mansion and Claire's new apartment. Neutral territory. Claire arrived first, wearing a blue dress he'd never seen. Michael and Emma came together, tension visible in their shoulders. Marcus. Claire's voice was carefully neutral. You look nice, he said, then winced at how inadequate it sounded. The waiter saved them, arriving with menus and rehearsed cheer. They ordered like strangers at a business dinner. I sold the house, Marcus said to his untouched salad. I know. Claire sipped her water. Susan Whitman told me. Dad's getting an apartment, Emma added quickly. Near downtown. 2 bedrooms, Marcus said. If you kids ever want to visit. Michael studied his plate. Maybe. The silence stretched again. 20 years of marriage crumbling under the weight of unsaid words. Corinne's worse, Claire said finally. Hospice starts next week. Marcus's fork clattered against his plate. Already? The doctors say maybe a month. Claire's voice softened. Andrew asks about you. I can't. I don't know how to face him. Try, Claire said. Before it's too late. The check came. No one reached for it. I've got it, Marcus said. Can you? Michael's voice cut like glass. Michael, Claire warned. No, it's fair, Marcus said. I deserve that. He pulled out his wallet. A photo fell out, him and Claire on their wedding day. He thought he'd removed all the photos. Claire picked it up, looked at it for a long moment, then handed it back without comment. Outside, the night air carried hints of approaching autumn. Emma hugged him quickly, awkwardly. Michael managed to nod. Marcus? Claire called as he turned to leave. Thank you. For dinner. He nodded, not trusting his voice. The drive to his hotel, temporary housing until the apartment was ready, took forever. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Detective Phillips. Found her, Phillips said when Marcus called back. Singapore. Already working another mark. Can you Interpol's involved now? But the money's gone, Marcus. Gone for good. Marcus sat in his hotel room, staring at the city lights. His laptop showed endless emails. Lawyers, creditors, reporters, still hungry for the story. A text from Andrew lit up his phone. Karen's asking for you again. Marcus closed his eyes, opened them, replied, tomorrow. First thing, another text arrived. Unknown number. Miss me? Love the news coverage. You're famous now, darling. K. Marcus blocked the number without reading more. Some ghosts didn't deserve attention. His hotel room phone rang. The front desk? Mr. Thorne? Your daughter's here. Emma stood in his doorway, tears streaming down her face. Uncle Andy just called. She sobbed. Aunt Corinne, she's not. They don't think. Marcus grabbed his coat. I'll drive. The night stretched ahead, full of ruins and wreckage. But maybe, somewhere in the debris, something new could grow. If he was brave enough to plant it. Tell me about your father, Doctor. Sarah Chun said, her notepad balanced carefully on crossed legs. The therapist's office smelled of vanilla and something else. Jasmine, maybe. Marcus shifted in the leather chair. 3 sessions in, it still felt wrong. Weak. He died at his desk, Marcus said. Heart attack. 42 years old. And nothing. That's it. Doctor. Chun's pen didn't move. You were 15. Found him myself. Face down in quarterly reports. Marcus's hand shook slightly. Debt collectors came a week later. Is that why you work so hard? To avoid his fate? Marcus stood, paced to the window. Seattle rain painted the glass. I succeeded where he failed. Did you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's phone buzzed. Another text from his realtor. The mansion had sold. Below asking price, but sold. Your father died alone at his desk, Doctor. Chun said. Surrounded by papers. Last month, where were you? Marcus's throat tightened. At my desk, alone, until Catherine found you there. Don't say her name? Why not? She's why you're here. Marcus turned from the window. I'm here because my daughter asked me to come. Emma's request was just the final push. Doctor. Chun set her notepad aside. You're here because you finally saw yourself becoming your father. The session ended 10 minutes later. Marcus sat in his car, laying the rain drum against the roof. His phone showed a missed call from Michael. "Dad?" Michael's voicemail was hesitant. "Mom said you're getting help." That's good. Call me?" The drive to his new apartment took 12 minutes. 2 bedrooms, downtown view, empty of everything except newly delivered furniture and moving boxes. Claire had helped him pick the furniture. "Just this once," she'd said, "for the kids' sake." His phone rang. Detective Phillips, Singapore police, made contact. "She's gone, but we found something." "Coffee?" The diner was busy with lunch crowds. Phillips slid a folder across the table. "Bank records," he said. She kept lists. All her marks. Marcus opened the folder. Names, dates, amounts. 20 years of cons. "You weren't her biggest score," Phillips said. "Just her last." Marcus scanned the list. "These men, most recovered. Eventually, the smart ones got help." Phillips stirred his coffee. "The others ended up like their fathers." Phillips looked up sharply. Marcus managed a small smile. "Therapy," he explained. His phone lit up. "Emma, Dad, Michael and we're getting dinner. Want to come?" The diner was halfway between his apartment and Michael's place. His children sat together in a booth, looking uncertain. "Hey," Emma said. Michael nodded. "Dad, they ordered burgers, like they used to before everything." "The house sold," Marcus said finally. "We know." Michael studied his fries. "Mom told us. I kept some things. Photos, memories. If you want, maybe later," Emma said quietly. The silence stretched, but differently now, less sharp. "How's the—" Michael gestured vaguely. "The therapy?" "Hard," Marcus admitted. "But good." Emma reached across the table, squeezed his hand quickly. "We're proud of you, Dad." Michael didn't speak, but he pushed his extra fries toward Marcus's plate, like he used to. Marcus's phone buzzed. "Claire, Karen's asking for you." The hospice room was quiet, except for machines. Karen lay sleeping, Andrew holding her hand. "She has good days and bad days," Andrew said without looking up. Marcus sat in the spare chair. "Andy, not now." Andrew's voice was tired. "Just be here. For her." Karen stirred. "Marcus? Hey, beautiful. You look terrible." She managed a weak smile. "But better. Getting there. Good." Her grip was fragile but firm. "Promise me something?" "Anything. Stop chasing ghosts." Her eyes fixed on his. "Your father's. Catherine's. All of them." Marcus nodded, throat too tight for words. "And Marcus?" Karen's voice faded slightly. "Forgive yourself." "We have." Andrew's shoulders shook. Marcus pretended not to notice. His phone stayed silent on the drive home. No messages from Catherine. No emergencies from lawyers. No ghosts. The apartment felt different when he entered. Less empty. A photo hung on the wall. Emma must have put it up. Him with his children, years ago. All of them laughing at something forgotten. Michael had left a voicemail. "Dad, Sunday dinner. Mom's cooking. Don't say no." Marcus stared at the city lights, remembering other nights, other views. His father's voice echoed, fainter now. "Success costs, boy." "No," Marcus said to the empty room. "Not everything." His laptop showed one new email. "Doctor Chen confirming next week's appointment." Marcus typed a reply with steady hands. Some scars were necessary. They showed where the healing began. The courthouse corridor stretched like a gauntlet. Marcus straightened his tie. Not designer anymore, just plain silk, and checked his watch. 9 a.m. Catherine's sentencing hearing. "Ready?" Detective Phillips asked. Marcus nodded. 6 months of international manhunts, forensic accountants, and legal battles had led to this moment. Catherine sat at the defendant's table, orange jumpsuit replacing designer dresses. She didn't turn when Marcus entered. "All rise." The testimony took hours. victim after victim describing ruined lives, shattered dreams. Marcus waited his turn, watching Catherine's shoulders. They never slumped. Thorne? The witness stand felt like confession. She took everything, Marcus said. Money, reputation, family. He paused. But that's not why I'm here. Catherine's head turned slightly. I'm here because of Corinne Morrison. Because while I was falling for lies, my best friend's wife was dying. Because I was too blind to see what mattered. The judge nodded. Continue. The money's gone. I accept that. But time? Marcus's voice cracked. Time with people who loved me? That's what she really stole. From all of us, single quotes, Catherine's lawyer stood. Objection. Emotional manipulation. Overruled. Single quotes. Marcus met Catherine's eyes for the first time. I forgive you. She blinked, mask slipping for just a second. Not for me. For Corinne. She taught me that hate costs more than money. The sentence came down. 15 years. No parole. Catherine turned as they led her out. I never loved you. I know, Marcus said. I never loved you either. I loved what I thought you were. Outside, autumn sun painted the courthouse steps gold. Marcus's phone lit up. Claire, Emma's engagement party tonight. Don't be late. The party filled Claire's backyard with laughter and fairy lights. Emma's fiancé, David, pediatric surgeon, worked the crowd like he'd been born to it. Dad, Emma hugged him tight. You came. Wouldn't miss it? Marcus handed her a small box. This was your grandmother's. Emma opened it. The pearl necklace caught the light. Dad, her eyes welled up. She'd want you to have it. Marcus cleared his throat. Something that matters more than money. Michael appeared with drinks. Nice suit, Dad. Non-designer looks good on you. Thanks, son. Claire approached, wine glass in hand. Marcus, you're early. New leaf. He smiled slightly. Speaking of which, James Harrison's here. Yes. Claire met his gaze steadily. As my friend, nothing more. I know. I'm sorry I ever thought. Ancient history. She touched his arm briefly. Come on. David's parents want to meet you. The evening blurred into toasts and photographs. Marcus watched his daughter glow with happiness, his son laugh with old friends. His phone stayed silent. No emergencies, no crises, no ghosts. David's father, John, retired teacher, found him by the dessert table. Emma tells me you're starting a foundation? Marcus nodded. The Corinne Morrison Memorial Fund for families dealing with cancer. Good man. John clasped his shoulder. Takes courage to rebuild. Takes courage to admit what needs rebuilding. The party wound down near midnight. Marcus helped Claire stack chairs, their movements familiar after 20 years of shared tasks. You seem better, she said. Getting there. Doctor, Chun helps. Claire nodded. The kids notice. So do I. Marcus stacked the last chair. I never thanked you. For not hating me. Teaching the kids not to hate me. Hate's exhausting. Claire smiled slightly. And you're doing the work. Finally. Emma and David left in a shower of rice and cheers. Michael helped his mother clean up. Marcus watched from the sidelines, content in his new role. His phone buzzed. Detective Phillips. Catherine's appealing the sentence. Let her. Marcus watched his family laugh together. I'm done with that story. The drive to his apartment felt shorter these days. A new routine. Gym in the morning. Therapy twice a week. Dinner with his kids on Sundays. Small steps. Real ones. His father's voice whispered sometimes. Late at night. Success costs, boy. But Marcus had learned to answer back. Not everything. Not anymore. A text from Emma lit up his phone. Thanks for the necklace, Dad. Love you. Marcus stood at his window, watching city lights flicker like stars. The view wasn't as high as his old office, but he saw more clearly now. His laptop showed one new email: the Karen Morrison Memorial Fund's first fundraiser. Andrew had agreed to speak. Marcus began to type, words flowing easily now. No lies, no masks. Just truth and the scars that came with it. Some prices were worth paying. Others weren't. The trick was learning the difference. If you enjoyed this story, we'd love for you to support us by leaving a like and subscribing to our Slices of Life channel. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Which city are you talking about? It's very rewarding for us to provide our followers with an enjoyable moment. We appreciate the unconditional support you show us in every story. Blessings!